One point that you already mentioned, energy. I mean, we have like the war with Russia, the energy crisis in Europe. So how do you see that effect? I mean, on everything that runs on proof of work, but also like proof of stake. How do you see that?
So it's certainly, I mean, one of the greatest things that was difficult at the time was Elon Musk pushing for basically a push away from proof of work until we came to a better resolution for powering that computation. At that time in 2017 particularly, a ton of Bitcoin hash rate was being done with traditional coal and natural gas fired power plants. And that's, obviously not great for the environment. That generally is not stranded energy. It's not curtailed energy. There's no reason that we would, every incremental, element of securing the blockchain was incremental pollution into the environment. Yes. And I think when he rattled the cage, a lot of folks, particularly in boardrooms, right? This was the issue with Bitcoin being adopted as a corporate treasury asset, alongside a few other issues, including certain tax implications and accounting standards. But really this idea of ESG friendliness and how Bitcoin was early on probably not great for the environment. And now, I think this capital markets are good at solving these things. You have, the folks that are ESG focused, the folks that are zero carbon. I'm on the board of a company called TeraWulf, and they're zero carbon, not carbon neutral, zero carbon. So they're not buying offsets, they're not producing the pollution at the onset. Yep. And there's other companies out there that are solving for this through alternative types of power, like solar, right? Where you have, before conversion power that's being curtailed because there's reverse network effects of solar power. And how can you convince industrial grade solar farms to use that power because they're taking it anyway, beyond storing it, to use it to mine Bitcoin? And there's a profitability aspect to it, but there's also this social good of Bitcoin. And that for me was one of the many reasons, right? Bitcoin is a social good, but it should also be an environmental good. And if we can combine the two, then that works well. So I think that ended up becoming, a critical point for at least the Bitcoin community in terms of being able to, a lot of folks leaned on ESG to not invest in this space, right? They didn't want to, that was one of the easy, X marks, scarlet letters on Bitcoin specifically. And Bitcoin being one of the few sort of regulated assets where it's been deemed not a security and they have the ability to invest in it. I think that was probably one of the critical conversions in the Bitcoin community, which was this pivot towards ESG. And markets will push towards that. So it's going to be harder to find financing if you're a traditionally powered Bitcoin miner, whereas, folks who are focused on ESG, I think there's a lot more capital willing to help them finance projects, for example. So that's kind of the power structure. I mean, inflation generally has been, the sort of inflection of inflation was a good thing at the onset. But obviously with that comes Fed targeting, and Fed targeting results in increases in interest rates, which results in, a severe drawdown in free flowing capital. And so that's what we've seen most risk assets fall on the back of.